Victoria is nearing the final turn ahead of the state election, and today both major parties officially launched their campaigns to persuade Victorians to either back Premier Dan Andrews for another term or give opposition leader Matthew Guy and his Liberals a run.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you and our extended Liberal family for being here today to support what will be, in just 2 weeks' time, a return to government for the Liberal Party in Victoria.
Do we choose cuts and closures and privatisation?
No!
Or do we keep striving for something better and fairer and kinder and for everyone?
Yes.
So
Now, for those in other states, you may not be have kept up with this, but as it stands, according to the latest Roy Morgan poll, Labor's election lead on a two-party preferred basis almost mirrors that of the 2018 Victorian election. But how much do we make of a poll? Do Victorians really want more of the same? Joining me now to give us his insights on what we should expect is political expert Dr Zareh Ghazarian from Monash University. Are the polls right, Zareh? And I only ask that because I remember quite often what happened to Jeff Kennett. Losing in 1999, he was streets ahead in the polls. Could they be wrong?
Look, they very well could be wrong, of course. There's no certainty with opinion polls. But what I think we can say, and we can say with some certainty going into this, is that there's been consistency in the polls, and they've consistently shown Labor to be in a very strong position compared to the coalition. And as you pointed out, it is essentially giving us this sense that Victorians, or the political mood in Victoria, hasn't really changed since 2018, even though, of course, we've had COVID and the associated impact that's had on the state.
So the longer the campaign has gone, has it played in favour of Dan Andrews or Matthew Guy?
I think it's been really interesting to see the two parties and the two leaders over the last few weeks. And I would suspect that there's been a bit of a shift occurring. I think over the last few days in particular, the Labor Party's campaign hasn't really been that strong. It's been derailed a bit by certain matters that have come up. For example, reports that the man injured in a car crash that was driven by Mr Andrews' wife in 2013 has come up. The reports about the United Firefighters Union in Victoria being very critical of Labor has come up. And these sorts of things, when they do come up, derail the campaign, because the Premier and the government has to respond to these issues rather than have that clean air that parties would like to have to be able to talk about their own policies and their own policy agenda.
And it reminds the electorate that the bloke has baggage, which they may have forgotten in the process. Now, we've seen a lot of politicking and policy on health and hospitals. Is that the primary issue? And is it the primary issue for the public as well as the politicians? I get the feeling the primary issue for the electorate is now cost of living.
No, I think certainly coming into the campaign launches today, the campaign was very much dominated by policies such as education, healthcare, essentially all the classic responsibilities of state governments, including public transport and infrastructure projects. But I think really today we've seen the crystallisation of cost of living being that central feature that both major parties want to talk about. And I suspect it's going to be the thing that the parties campaign on over the next remaining 2 weeks. Remembering, of course, that in Victoria, early polling will open tomorrow.
Yeah, it all starts tomorrow. What is the most likely outcome in your view? A Labor victory in a minority government, maybe?
Well, it's looking to be a Labor victory with a majority. Labor has at the moment 55 out of the 88 seats. There needs to be a very strong swing against them for the coalition to be able to knock them off. So looking at the numbers, it looks most likely that Labor may lose some seats but retain that working majority of 45 plus that they need in the chamber.
OK. Dr Zareh Ghazarian, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.